Have you ever taken a bite of food so good that for a split second, the world around you fades? That's how it started for me. A single forkful of creamy fettuccine Alfredo, perfectly cooked, rich, comforting. And then, with a single sentence, my wife made it taste like ashes in my mouth. I've been seeing someone else. I froze, my fork clattering against the plate. The hum of the restaurant, the gentle clinking of glasses, the faint tune of a piano in the background. It all blurred into a distant buzz. I stared at Lillian, my wife of 10 years, sitting across from me with an expression so calm, so composed, that for a moment I thought I had misheard her. She tilted her head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle she had already solved. I needed something new, something exciting, she continued, swirling the wine in her glass like she was discussing the weather. I love you, of course, but I felt like our passion was fading, so I decided to rekindle it in my own way. I blinked. In your own way? My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. She nodded as if what she was saying made perfect sense. With someone else. The words knocked the breath from my lungs. The weight of them pressed against my chest, making it impossible to move, to think. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had trusted with everything, was telling me casually over dinner that she had been unfaithful. And she wasn't even apologetic. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table as my mind scrambled for something, anything, to grasp onto. Maybe this was some twisted joke, some poorly executed attempt at reigniting a spark she thought we had lost. But no, there was no hesitation in her eyes, no remorse. I forced myself to speak, to push through the shock clouding my thoughts. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice steadier now. You cheated on me because you wanted to feel passion again? She sighed, setting down her glass. Don't be so dramatic, Charles. It's not like I don't love you. I just needed to feel alive. The room suddenly felt suffocating, the air too thick. The scent of garlic and wine, once inviting, now made my stomach turn. I swallowed hard, forcing down the lump in my throat. How long? She raised an eyebrow. Does it matter? I stared at her, a hollow laugh escaping before I could stop it. Are you serious? Lillian didn't flinch. A few months, maybe 6. She shrugged like it was nothing. It's been good for me. For us. For us? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife had been sneaking around behind my back, and now she was sitting here expecting me to just accept it. Worse, she seemed to think she had done something good. I looked down at my plate, the meal that had tasted so perfect just moments ago now, cold and untouched. My appetite was gone. I should have been angry, furious. But all I felt was numb. Like something inside me had been shattered, and I was too stunned to even react. Lillian reached across the table, her fingers brushing against mine. I don't want this to change us, Charles. If anything, I think it could bring us closer. If you really love me, you'll understand. I stared at her hand, then slowly lifted my gaze back to hers. And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place. She thought I would accept this. She thought I would smile, nod, and pretend everything was fine. She was wrong. What I did next left her speechless. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out the restaurant's soft hum of conversation and clinking silverware. Lillian sat across from me, sipping her wine as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of our marriage. She thought I would sit there, stunned into silence, that I would stammer, maybe beg for an explanation, that I would accept her twisted logic and let her rewrite the rules of our marriage. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I exhaled slowly, forcing my expression into something neutral, something unreadable. I reached for my glass and took a sip of water, letting the coldness anchor me. "So," I said, my voice steady, "you want me to understand?" Lillian's lips curled into a satisfied smile, as if she had won. "Exactly. This doesn't have to be a bad thing, Charles. It's just a different way of looking at love." "A different way of looking at love?" I nodded thoughtfully. "And who is he?" She blinked, caught off guard by the question. "What?" "The man you've been rekindling your passion with." I tilted my head. "You said this has been going on for months. Surely you can tell me his name." A flicker of hesitation crossed her face, but she masked it quickly. "You don't know him." "That's not what I asked." She sighed, setting her wine glass down. "Why does it matter? That's not the point." "It is the point," I interrupted. "If you expect me to be as understanding as you claim, I should at least know who my competition is." Lillian pursed her lips, clearly debating whether or not to tell me. Then, with a dramatic exhale, she said, "His name is Grant." Grant. The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it, softly, almost reverently, sent a knife straight into my gut. I forced a small smile, nodding as if I was considering her words. "In this arrangement of yours," I continued, "how exactly does it work? You sneak around behind my back and I just pretend I don't notice?" She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I didn't want to hurt you, Charles. I needed this. But I do think we can move forward from it. Maybe we can even—" She hesitated, then leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Maybe you should try it too." I stared at her, my fingers tightening around my glass. "You're suggesting I cheat on you?" Lillian gave me a small, almost conspiratorial smile. "I'm suggesting you open your mind. We're not 20 anymore. Things change. People change." Unbelievable. She wasn't just confessing to an affair. She was selling it to me like some kind of revolutionary marriage upgrade. And she thought I would buy it. I set my glass down and leaned back in my chair. "You know, Lillian, you're right about one thing." Her eyes lit up with satisfaction. "I am?" I nodded. "People change, and so do marriages." What I did next left her speechless. I watched Lillian carefully, studying every flicker of emotion across her face. She thought she was in control of the conversation, of me. But she had no idea that I was no longer the man who walked into this restaurant an hour ago, eager for a quiet dinner. I had changed. She had forced me to change. I swirled the water in my glass, my fingers tapping lightly against the rim. "You really think this is a solution, don't you?" I asked, keeping my voice measured. Lillian smiled as if she had won me over. "It is a solution, Charles. A modern approach. We love each other, but we can't pretend passion lasts forever." I let out a slow breath. "So, in your mind, the best way to fix our marriage was to bring another man into it?" She gave a soft laugh, shaking her head as if I was being naive. "It's not about replacing you. It's about adding something new, something exciting. And I truly believe this could help us. I feel more alive than I have in years." There it was. The real reason behind all of this. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about me. It was about her thrill, her excitement, her need to feel something again. I nodded slowly, tapping my fingers against the table. "And what if I say no?" Lillian arched a brow. "No? What if I say I don't want to be in a marriage where my wife needs someone else to feel alive?" She sighed as if she was dealing with a child who didn't understand the rules of the game. Charles, don't be like that. You're thinking about this the wrong way. It's not about hurting you. Then why do I feel like I just got gutted? She flinched slightly, but quickly recovered. Because you weren't prepared for it. Change is hard, but if you give it time, you'll see that this could actually be a good thing for both of us. I scoffed. A good thing? You really believe that? She reached for my hand across the table, her fingers resting lightly against mine. I do. And I hope you can trust me enough to see it too. I stared at her hand, feeling nothing but cold detachment. Trust. That word used to mean something between us. But now it was just a hollow echo of what we used to be. I slowly pulled my hand away. All right, I said. Let's say I go along with this. What happens next? Lillian smiled, sensing victory. We move forward. We keep what we have, but without limitations. We stop restricting ourselves to outdated ideas of monogamy. I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. And you really think that'll work? That we'll just carry on like normal? She hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed to see. She had no idea what came next. I took a deep breath, then stood up. Okay, Lillian. You want an open marriage? She blinked up at me, confused. What are you doing? I pulled my wallet from my pocket and dropped a few bills on the table, covering the meal. Then I leaned in close, just enough for only her to hear. Then let's start now. Her lips parted slightly. What do you mean? I gave her the smallest smirk. I mean, I'll go find someone new tonight, since that's the game you want to play. Lillian's face paled. For the first time that evening, she was the one caught off guard. I turned, walking away without looking back. Because for the first time in our marriage, I was no longer the one holding on. The night air hit me like a shock to the system as I stepped outside the restaurant. My heart hammered in my chest. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated. No, what I felt in that moment was something far more dangerous. Clarity. Lillian thought she had control over me, over our marriage, over the way things were supposed to play out. She expected me to crumble, to resist, to beg for her love while she indulged in her newfound passion. But I had no intention of playing the role she had scripted for me. I walked down the sidewalk, the city buzzing around me, my mind racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. I could still see her face, that moment of hesitation when I told her I'd play her game. She wanted an open marriage, but she wasn't ready for me to embrace it. And that's exactly what I planned to do. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. But I knew I wouldn't find what I was looking for there. No, this wasn't about replacing Lillian or seeking revenge. This was about taking back my life. For too long, I had been the stable, predictable husband, the one who put her needs first, the one who made sure our life ran smoothly while she... What? Got bored? Decided that I wasn't enough? I clenched my jaw. Not anymore. I needed to think, to process, and I needed a drink. There was a bar a block away, a place I used to go with friends before marriage swallowed up my social life. I pushed open the door. Stepping into the dimly lit space, the sound of soft jazz playing in the background. I found a seat at the counter and ordered a whiskey, taking a slow sip as I let everything settle in my mind. And that's when I heard it. A voice behind me, soft, familiar. Charles? I turned, and for the first time that evening, I was the one caught off guard. Sitting a few stools away, looking just as surprised as I was someone I hadn't seen in years. Margot. She'd been a close friend once, back in college. We had drifted apart when life pulled us in different directions. But there she was, looking at me with the same warm smile I remembered. She gestured to the seat next to her. Mind if I join you? I let out a breath, shaking my head with a small smirk. Not at all. As she sat down, I felt something shift inside me. Lillian wanted an open marriage. She was about to learn what that really meant. Margot slid into the seat beside me, her presence both unexpected and strangely familiar. She hadn't changed much, still carried that quiet confidence, the kind that made people gravitate toward her without her even trying. She ordered a drink, then turned to me with a curious smile. It's been a long time, Charles. What brings you here? I let out a breath, rolling the whiskey around in my glass. Would you believe me if I said I was celebrating? Her eyes sparkled with amusement. That depends. Celebrating what? I studied her for a second before smirking. Freedom. Margot raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. That's an interesting word. You weren't exactly the wild and free type back in the day. No, I admitted, but people change. I took a sip of my drink, feeling the burn slide down my throat. I could feel Margot watching me, waiting for me to elaborate, and maybe I wanted to. After all, why should I be the one carrying the weight of Lillian's choices alone? I set my glass down and met Margot's gaze. Would you believe me if I told you my wife sat across from me at dinner tonight and admitted she's been seeing someone else? Margot's expression froze for just a second before she let out a short laugh, one of disbelief, not amusement. You're kidding. I shook my head. Nope. Apparently monogamy was a little too boring for her. She frowned. And you're just okay with that? I chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Let's just say I've decided to embrace her philosophy. Margot leaned back, studying me like she was trying to figure out if I was serious. So what now? You going to go out and find someone new just to prove a point? I tilted my head. Would that be so wrong? She took a slow sip of her drink, considering. I guess that depends. Are you doing it for you, or for revenge? That was the real question, wasn't it? Because up until this moment, I wasn't sure if I was just playing a game to throw Lillian off balance, or if I actually wanted this. But as I sat there looking at Margot, the way she listened, the way she actually cared, I realized something. This wasn't about Lillian anymore. This was about me. I exhaled, setting my glass down. Maybe a little of both. Margot smirked. Honest, I like that. For the first time that night, I felt something lighten inside me. A sense of possibility, of choice. Lillian had wanted an open marriage. Well, she was about to get exactly what she asked for. The ice in my glass had started to melt, thinning the whiskey as I let Margot's question settle between us. Are you doing this for you, or for revenge? I wasn't sure. Or maybe I was sure, and I just didn't want to admit it yet. I leaned back in my seat, studying her for a moment. Margot wasn't just an old friend. She was a memory of who I used to be, before marriage had reshaped me into someone predictable, someone safe. She had always been the kind of woman who challenged me, who made me second-guess what I thought I knew about life. And here she was, years later, appearing on the exact night my world imploded. I swirled my drink in the glass, letting out a slow breath. Maybe it started as revenge, but sitting here now, I think I just want to feel like myself again. Margot watched me carefully, then nodded. That I can understand. She didn't push, she didn't judge. She just took a sip of her drink and let the silence settle comfortably between us. And maybe that's why I kept talking. "You know what the worst part is?" I said after a moment. She didn't even seem guilty. No tears, no hesitation. She just sat there telling me how her affair was supposed to make our marriage better, like it was some kind of gift to me. Margot scoffed. "That's some next-level narcissism right there." I let out a bitter laugh. She actually tried to sell me on the idea. Told me to open my mind and stop thinking so traditionally, like I was the one with the problem for expecting loyalty. Margot shook her head. "Let me guess. She expected you to sit there and take it, to be the mature one and accept her new lifestyle." I smirked. "Bingo, and instead you walked out." "Damn right I did." Margot raised her glass with a small smile. "Then I'd say tonight really is a celebration." I clinked my glass against hers. "To freedom." We both took a sip, and as the warmth of the whiskey settled in my chest, I felt something shift inside me. Lillian had spent months making her choice, deciding what she wanted, taking what she thought she deserved. But tonight, I was making my choice. And I wasn't going to be the same man I was when I walked into that restaurant. Margot set her glass down, tilting her head slightly. "So, Charles, what now?" I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. That's a damn good question. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't have the answer. But maybe that was the best part. I let Margot's question hang in the air for a moment, savoring the weight of it. What now? It was such a simple question, but the answer felt like the most important decision I had ever faced. I had spent years living within the confines of a marriage that I thought was built on love, loyalty, and trust. But now I realized I had been living in her version of reality. One where she dictated the rules, where my needs came second, where my feelings were disposable as long as she got her thrill. No more. I set my empty glass on the bar and turned to Margot, feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Control. "I don't know what's next," I admitted. "But for the first time in years, I think I actually want to figure it out." Margot's eyes softened. "That's a good start." A slow smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. "And I think it starts with me doing exactly what Lillian wanted." Margot arched an eyebrow. "Oh?" I leaned in just slightly, lowering my voice. "She wanted an open marriage, right? She wanted freedom. Well, so do I." Her lips curled into an amused smile, but there was something knowing in her gaze. "And you think jumping into something new is the answer?" I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "I think the answer is that I stopped waiting for permission to live my life." Margot studied me for a long moment, then nodded approvingly. "Now that, I can drink too." I watched her, appreciating the way she didn't push, didn't probe too deep. She just let me be in this moment, in this new version of myself. And maybe that's why I made my next move. "Let's get out of here," I said suddenly. Margot blinked, surprised, but then her smile widened. "Where to?" I shrugged. "Anywhere but here." Margot chuckled, then grabbed her coat. "I like the way you think." As we stepped out of the bar, the cool night air washed over me. But this time it didn't feel suffocating. It felt freeing. I wasn't running away anymore. I was walking towards something new. And Lillian? She had no idea what was coming. The night air was crisp as Margot and I walked through the quiet streets, a comfortable silence settling between us. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt light, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. We ended up at a late-night cafe tucked into a quiet corner. With fresh coffee in front of us, the conversation flowed effortlessly, as if no time had passed since we last saw each other. We talked about everything: our careers, old memories, life's unexpected turns. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I didn't feel like I had to chase after love to beg for my worth. I just was. Margot leaned back in her seat, studying me with an amused smile. "You look different, you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Do I?" She nodded. "Lighter, like you're finally breathing again." I chuckled, shaking my head. "I think I am." And I meant it. For so long, I had been trapped in a cycle of doing what was expected, of being the perfect husband, while Lillian slowly unraveled our marriage behind my back. Now I was free. And Lillian? Well, she had made her choices, and now it was my turn. The next morning, I walked into our house with a calm I hadn't felt in a long time. Lillian was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, dressed in one of her perfectly pressed blouses like nothing had changed, but everything had. She glanced up when she saw me. "Where were you last night?" I smirked, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Out." She frowned. "Out where?" I turned to her, leaning against the counter, studying her carefully. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. I just felt done. "I don't think that's your business anymore," I said simply. Her expression shifted, her confidence cracking for the first time. "Charles, what does that mean?" I exhaled, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "It means I'm done playing your game, Lillian. You wanted freedom? You got it. So do I." She stared at me, realization dawning in her eyes. "You don't mean that." I set my cup down, meeting her gaze with a steady calmness. "Oh, I do." And for the first time since that disastrous dinner, I knew I meant it. Lillian had wanted something new, something exciting. Well,